Now we're live. Will convene our regularly scheduled meeting from the Aquilina Howell Center for some of us, and for others who are joining us via Zoom. Today is August the 11th, and this is our traditionally scheduled business meeting. Before we have the pledge, I would like to ask that we have a moment of silence for another member of our family who has succumbed to COVID-19, Jacqueline Bird, the mother of our former employee. In a moment of silence, please. Thank you. All right. Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Superintendent, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Absolutely. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Ms. Bowen, are you prepared to read the changes and additions? I think you're muted.
Unmute again. Here I am. They are as follows: the changes and additions. Item 1, 10.01, 223 Agency, Inc. at Lively Technical College. Reference only number 5621 pulled. School board member Striplin has asked for additional information on this item. It has been moved to the August 18, 2020 school board meeting. I move the acceptance of the changes and additions, Madam Chair.
Motion by Ms. Bowen. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Striplin. Any opposition? Hearing no opposition, show it unanimously approved. Thank you. It takes us to the superintendent's spotlight on COVID health heroes. Mr.
And we have a spotlight tonight. We haven't had one in months, so I'm very excited, Madam Chair. As you know, we convened a task force at your recommendation in the month of June through the end of the month to give additional recommendations and considerations of things from people kind of outside of our school district that we may want to consider before reopening. One of the valuable members and a person recommended by Board Member Striplin was a good friend to our public school system, Michelle Ubin, and her expertise. She's had a number of children who have gone through our school system, and after it was over, and then the task force hasn't dismantled officially yet, but after they gave their recommendations and we moved forward with our reopening plan, Michelle was quick to realize that we were going to need to do a marketing campaign, especially for our children, about the expectations going into this school year and what reopening would look like with all of the new health and safety precautions. So she and her firm, Sachs Media Group, took it upon themselves to come up with this really clever idea of COVID Health Heroes. And so, Michelle, if you would come up, and first, thank you so much for your continued support of our traditional public schools. You're such a strong advocate of our public schools, and then for serving on this task force, and then in addition, at no cost to the district, coming up with this very creative marketing idea. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you, Superintendent, and I just want to say what a pleasure it is to be here with the members of the school board, the superintendent, and just to convey how grateful we all are for the very difficult work that you're doing. I mean, it's a cliche at this point to say that there's no playbook for this. It is the most difficult, challenging thing that any of us has faced, and the choices that you're making are not easy. I appreciated to serve on the Reopen Leon County Schools task force, and through that, I was able to really see how much work behind the scenes and how much thought and expertise is going into trying to make the absolute best decisions that you can for our children and our families and our communities. And as part of that, spent some time on the CDC website and looked at all of the resources available, which of course, you know, there are a lot of excellent resources out there, but I felt like we didn't see anything that was really tailored for children to both convey why they should adopt these behaviors, even if maybe they're not afraid themselves, to recognize that the behaviors they adopt could be heroic by stopping the spread to someone else, and to teach them how to do it very simply. So our great team at Sachs Media Group developed COVID Health Heroes using 6 multicultural superheroes that were created exactly for this campaign, each of them demonstrating a different superhero or superpower that they can use to keep people safe. And then we kind of age progressed the superheroes to be a little more appropriate for middle school and high school students. So if we can turn that on, we'll show you what you have. So you have a poster and a flyer. The poster has some more detail information for elementary school children. And then the next slide, please. We'll show you the companion poster and flyer for middle and high school age children. And then in addition to that, we designed floor stickers that describe the 6-foot force field that we're asking students to keep in order to keep other people safe. And then social media content. If we can play this is a brief animated video that can be used on social media. There's music, but you can't hear it right now.
I'm all about the 6-foot force field, by the way.
I love the tie-in with the superpowers, Michelle. That's awesome.
Yep.
So cute.
And then just the last slide shows you some of the other social media content. I think you might have to go one further. No? Okay, well, there's a library of social media posts that you can use between now and when students return that can begin the process of educating and start conversations between parents and children. And, you know, just in conclusion, I want to say we've had 6 children in our family go through Leon County Schools. I am indebted to Leon County Schools for providing them a great academic and social start in life. And I hope this is helpful. It's a pleasure to be able to give back a little bit to the district that's done so much for us.
Thank you, Michelle. We appreciate you and Sachs Media Group and this creative work that tries to take what is a really serious and difficult subject and make it not so scary for kids. So we appreciate that.
All right, Madam Chair, could I just echo that? I mean, that is so creative, and it uses fun and humor and color and great graphics. And we're in the education business, and that really enhances our role as educators, because that's what this is all about, educating people how to be safe and how to keep others safe. So thank you so much to Sachs Media Group. I really appreciate it. We all do, I know.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle. This is fantastic. Ron Sachs has been a long-time partner with the school district, and this is just a continuation of what is certainly a legacy of support for our children and our students and our Leon County School District family, and at a time when it's most needed. So thank you for being responsive.
Thank you very much. Outstanding.
Rocky, wearing is caring.
Wearing is caring. You're absolutely right. That, along with the COVID Health Heroes and the superpowers and the force field, you know. So the good news is our kids are dealing with this each and every day. And I shared that experience I had recently, where 2 kids, probably 11 or 12 years old, came into the Circle K. And one young man had his mask on, and the other one didn't, but everyone else in there did. And he felt so, I guess, embarrassed, for lack of a better word, that he took his ball cap and he put it over his face. So the kids are slowly starting to learn, but it's going to take messages like this over the course of the next 3 weeks until they walk into our doors to continue to reinforce that. These are the expectations. These are the things you need to do to keep you safe, your siblings safe, your parents safe, your grandparents safe, and our community safe. So, but this puts it in a context where a lot of those, especially younger kids, can really understand, and it's kind of cool. It makes it kind of cool. So, again, Michelle, thank you, and Ron, and your whole team.
And Madam Chair and Mr. Superintendent, this goes back to a narrative that we started at the beginning of our discussions since the pandemic, that these types of campaigns would teach our young people civic responsibility and associate that with social distancing and wearing a mask. And so that same type of civic responsibility is now manifested as not only civic responsibility, but heroic. And I think that's a fantastic tandem.
You know, I'm pretty certain that if the Batman and Robin capes that my mother-in-law made for my children when they were little had come with masks, they would still be in vogue. So, great way to take it.
Yes.
Thank you so much. All right, that takes us to item 5.04, the Reopen Leon Schools updates. Mr. Superintendent.
Back
Please.
to my podium. All right, so we're going to give you a little update, and then I'll entertain the questions. I think you had some questions, Ms. Rasmussen, as did Ms. Wood. So if we cover things that we don't answer your questions, we'll go back and catch those. Just an update, I got numbers from Missy Atkinson. As of today, we've heard back from 89 to 90% of our students. Of the 89% we've heard back from, we have 54%, 54% who are asking to return to brick and mortar, and 46% who are choosing the digital academy, and then a handful, about 300 some odd students who have chosen to enroll in Leon Virtual School. So we're at about 54 to 46. I also want to clarify something that I've heard in the community. There's obviously a misunderstanding about our contract with CDWG and the order that we place for devices. And we've made it public now that our devices are unfortunately not going to be here in time for the start of school. We are working feverishly to take everything in our current inventory, both desktop and mobile devices, to see exactly what we have at which schools and start shifting things around. But I want to make it very clear that order was placed right when the school year ended. When we made this decision on June the 2nd, we got in line. Then we negotiated the contract that Mr. Rasmussen signed. It will come back to you, but we were in line for these devices on June the 2nd, and that we have not wavered from that. Now, they told us verbally they would not commit in writing because everyone in the country is trying to gain devices now. So they hesitated at putting in writing in the contract the exact delivery, but we were led to believe at the time that it would be late July or early August. Well, we now know that is not the case. There have been some delays in the delivery. We have two choices. We can either kick and scream and throw a temper tantrum, or we can suck it up and make the best of it and figure out a way to move forward, to open our schools, and that's exactly what we're doing. But to be clear, those devices were ordered on June the 2nd. There was a 500,000 device order from CDWG. We got in line. There's about 130,000 ahead of us, but we are still in order to get those devices when they arrive here in the continental United States and in the state of Florida. So to make it clear, there's no contract has been broken, no contract has been breached. We are still under contract with CDWG and with TIG, the company that is moving here, that is actively looking for business space, for commercial space that will be servicing these devices. So I wanted to make that clear from the beginning. So we always start with health and safety because that's number one on everyone's mind, is the balance of getting those 16,000 some odd children back in our schools safely, while also ensuring for the health and safety of our employees. So, Rod, if you would give maybe an update to the board members on some discussions we've had in regards to air quality, who you're contracting with, who's advising us, and some changes we're making with filters and ionization. So, Rod, if you would.
No problem, Mr. Superintendent. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members, and Superintendent again. Just want to update everyone on what we're doing with our HVAC upgrades. We've been consulting with McGinnis and Fleming, who's one of our certified mechanical engineers that we've been working with on several projects.
Rod, say the
Along
name
with,
again, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
The name again? The name of the consultant?
McGinnis and Fleming. Peter McGinnis, he's a mechanical engineer. We've worked with him on several projects over several schools that we've done mechanical upgrades on. And we're also working with, consulting with him, with Air Intellect. The gentleman's name is Eric Osterhaus, and he's worked with us also on various air quality issues we've had throughout the district. And we're following the guidelines of ASHRAE, and ASHRAE is the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, Air Conditioning Engineers. The recommendation we've gotten from those three areas include our upgrading of our filters. We're going with the more dense filters to help collect particles. We're looking at upgrading our filter schedule, changing from the current schedule that we have in place to a more frequent replacement schedule. We're looking at adjusting the set points on our air conditioning systems to a lower level. We're looking at extending our run times on our air conditioning system to improve ventilation. And we've been consulting with a few vendors on this pinpoint ionization. And what that does, that consolidates air particles to a more dense, which will help our filters work more efficiently to collect these. It's like a positive and negative ion kind of scientific approach. And it condensed those particles to where the filters work more efficiently. And we're going to be placing those in a lot of our areas, like the cafeterias. We're going to have large gatherings, media centers. We're looking at gymnasiums, looking at front office clinic areas, and 100% throughout the entire Gretchen Everhart School.
Okay, great. You have some questions?
Yeah, Rod, in talking to these consultants and subject matter experts, is there a need for us to revisit our capital outlay budget? And are there older systems that need urgently to be replaced? I don't want to put you on the spot because that may or may not be. I think that's a conversation that we as a board probably need to have. I have a new mask and it's falling, sorry.
That's something that we consider, but we were looking at a most expedient solution so we can make sure we implement these at the time of or prior to the students arriving and teachers arriving on campuses. Mm-hmm. But we definitely can look at those options down the road. But in doing that, we're looking at hiring a design consultant, going through the process of completing the design, selecting the contractor. Once we select the contractor, we get the bids in place, order the equipment. So we're looking at months, if not a year, before we get these those type solutions in place.
Okay. Rod, would that include the ionization piece? Talk a little bit more about that and what that means. Ionization?
The pinpoint ionization is a technology where the probes themselves will be placed in the air conditioning system, and they will actually condense the positive and negative particles such that they will be collected, and then as part of the attraction of the positive and negative particles, they would then be through the filtration system of the current system gathered, and then, as you know or may not know, the COVID virus is a very small particle. But by condensing those particles together will help with the upgrading of the filters that we're going with. Will make the filters work more efficiently by doing with that technology. Similar to, again, there's other type technologies, but that type technology we looked at by recommendation from Mr. McGinnis will definitely work with our system since we have such a variety of systems throughout the district.
And that system will be used in the larger meeting areas of all of our schools or some of them?
We're looking at our large areas. We're looking at Gretchen Everhart. We're looking at our COVID areas and clinics, and we're looking at our cafeterias and gymnasiums, excuse me.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you.
Are you, Mr. McQueen, are you interacting at all with the COVID response team, the medical experts? I'm just thinking, when I first initially called for a chief medical officer, my thinking was that that person would be backed with an interdisciplinary team of experts from lots of different fields, immunology, but public health and air quality and all those things. And I hate to bring this up, but as we all learn the hard way, the EPA might have one standard, and then the medical experts might have a different standard on what's acceptable in this new COVID environment. So I just want to make sure we're being proactive and thinking about that in terms of the safety and protection of all of our staff, employees, and students, anybody who's on our campuses or in our buildings, and that we're making sure that we're tapping into all of the expertise that exists. Sorry, I'm just like falling apart.
Yes, we have been, not on this particular effort, but this is something that we can definitely discuss with them to ensure that they're on board with our efforts.
Yeah, I think it would be important from risk management, liability, and just honorably to make sure that as we keep continuing to promise our people that we're doing everything we can do to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to have an informed perspective on any of these initiatives, that we're making sure that they're incorporated into the decision making.
Well, Rod is a key component of this group that will be helping in these decisions as we move forward to reopening. But let's be clear, our schools are not built to hospital standards when it comes to
Right.
air conditioning systems. So don't even like the word transparent, but our schools, Leon High School was built in the 1930s. They are not built to the same standard that hospitals are. But we are doing everything we can within reason, proactively, to address as much as we possibly can. So basically what these ionization things do is molecules attract other molecules, which makes that molecule larger, and then it gets trapped into the filter, right? Theoretically. So, but the science is always changing. It came out the other day. They're going to talk a little bit about masks. You notice I have a different mask on tonight because there was because Duke University came out with some research that said that gaiters and busts do not offer the same protection as a thicker, denser mask. And so it's the same with this science and this technology as well.
Sure.
But we have Mr. McQueen and those consultants who will work alongside us every step of the way. But as a good starting place for all of Gretchen Everhart, of course, campus-wide, and then into our clinics, our cafeterias, our kitchens, in those areas that we know are going to be frequent often by large numbers of students. That's a good starting place. And this in and of itself is probably between $150,000 and $200,000, just that alone. But I think it's something we can accomplish in a short period of time. And if we want to look to expand, we'll continue to look to expand. But I think it's a good starting place.
That's great, and I appreciate
Madam
that.
Chair?
Ms. Bowen.
Thank you. I have a quick question for the superintendent before we continue. He was talking about, and it's for my clarification, I think, about the devices and how we are still expecting them. I think I heard him say that we would be using desktop computers as well as the laptops. I'm trying to understand. I've got a clunker in the back bedroom back there that's an old desktop, and I'm trying to get in my mind what it is we're going to be giving these kids, and if this desktop or these desktops will have the opportunity for live discussion and learning with teacher pupil interaction back and forth. And if you're giving all of the students desktops or some desktops and some laptops, how will that distinction be made as to who gets what? And I offer that because if the desktop is what I'm thinking, that used to be a pretty large device, kind of clunky, and it came with the little, whatever that doohickey is that you have to have with it.
The monitor.
And a lot of the families
CPU.
in 32304, there's not a lot of space in houses. You know, there are no offices, and in my house, I guess I should speak to that, for the size of the desktop. So I'm just interested in knowing if that is what you meant, or where are we with that, please?
Do you want me to jump to that? Okay. All right. So Justin Williamson, are you on on the call? He's not. Okay. All right. So let me update you on where we are. So we have about 14,000 mobile devices in our inventory between the schools and what we have out of the district office, right? About 14,000. We also have about 6,000 or 7,000 desktops, student desktops in our school, which would then give us approximately 20,000, maybe between 20 and 21,000 total devices in our inventory that could be used in this effort until our devices arise. So as you know, we are also now, we talked about this the other night, moving to a BYOD, bring your own device. And we are making phone calls to families to see if they have devices at home, either a fixed device for those kids in the digital academy, a fixed desktop at home, or a mobile device at home that they can use until our computers arrive. And we need our families to be as transparent as possible in this effort. We need good numbers and good data. So at the end of this week, we'll know exactly how many of the Digital Academy kids, of those 13 plus thousand kids, have devices at home and how many don't. So once at the end of this week, we can take those numbers out of the equation, right? And so right now, it's trending at about 2/3 need a device and 1/3 don't. Now, again, I'm asking all of our parents and families, when we make that call, please, please, please be upfront and honest with us. And if you have something that can get us through, get us over the hump, we need you to use that. Please don't say, well, yeah, sure, I'll get another device from the school district, because we need to hold those for parents and students and families that they don't have an option. They do not have those resources at home. They just don't. So I need our families to be honest with us when we make those calls. I promise you, everyone, all 32,500 are going to have a new device when they get here. But in the meantime, we need our families to be honest and transparent and say, these are the resources we can commit as a family to help get us over the hump until those devices come. Now, so if those numbers hold true, if we say we have 20,000 desktops and mobile devices in our inventory, that would be about 2/3 of our student population. So we're counting on 9,000 or 10,000 of our parents and families having devices they can use from home. Guys, we have some of the most exciting things going on right now with Canvas. All of our classes are loaded in Canvas. All the student schedules are loaded in Canvas. The teachers are playing around in Canvas. All the content's in Canvas, the assessments, the assignments. But all of that hinges on these devices, right? On the devices. And also connectivity. But we know that the vast majority of our families have connectivity, because we reached out to them and they told us they had it. And those that don't, the foundation, Eric Clark's working with those families to ensure that they get connected. So we had the partnership with Comcast. We're moving forward with Mr. Figures on the hotspots. They evidently work beautifully out in the Fort Braden area and out in the Miccosukee area. So we have a lot of momentum that we have going, but it all hinges on devices. And so, yes, ma'am, to answer your question, we are looking, especially at the secondary level right now, at distributing the desktops we have in our inventory first. Why? Because those kids have already made the commitment. They're going to be there. And quite honestly, if Rocky was going to be a Digital Academy student, I would rather sit at a table at a desk with a desktop, with a keyboard and a monitor and all the stuff that goes with it, right? And we know our families. We ordered about 3,500 cameras with microphones, but you can get those things for like $34 in Amazon. And so those kids, about 34, yes, ma'am, about 34 or $35. So they aren't overly expensive, and you can get I'm scared of the words. It's the thing you plug into the USB that makes the computer wireless. So that's only $10. So for $44, you can get the camera and the microphone and the little, it's called a dongle something or other, but you plug it into the computer and it makes it wireless. So we thought, well, let's do the desktops first, and those kids will have it. And then, because if we have to shut a school down for 2 or 3 weeks or a month, there's not time really to get those desktops and to push them out then. Those kids that are in the brick and mortar are going to need mobile devices for two reasons. One, to take home back and forth to do their homework. And two, if they go home, they already have it in their possession where they can use it from home. Or if they have to quarantine, they can go quarantine at home and then bring it back. So the thought right now, especially with our secondary schools, is we're going to clean out all of our desktop inventory because we know those kids are going to be fixed at least for the first 9 weeks of the school year. We have to throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at this. Right now, in a perfect world, if we had everything, we wouldn't have to worry about it, but we don't. But I think we have a plan moving forward because, again, I'm sorry Justin's not on because he has done. Is Justin on there now? Okay, Justin, you got to get on and brag about all of the wonderful things you've done since our last meeting with teachers and Canvas and content and assessments and I mean, you can kind of reinforce a little bit of what I said about devices.
Yes, Mr. Superintendent. So we are very pleased to say that our integrations with Canvas is going well. Our professional learning department has been working with teachers on rolling out professional development in Canvas. We have the integrations that are taking place, and so we have successfully loaded our courses from Focus have been loaded into the Canvas system. We also have started pushing out content for teachers with all the assessments and assignments, so that teachers really are at this point are able to start building their courses, making their modifications, doing those sort of things, in Canvas to prepare for next year. And so all of that is taking place as we speak, and so we are very, very excited about that.
And Justin and Dale and Bill are all devising this plan about moving computers. So if X school has extra, we realize that parents at school X, there's 70% of parents at this school and families have devices. They're good. Then we can shift some of those to other schools where we need to fill the gap. So Bill Nimmons and Dale Joyner and Justin are working on that plan to shift things around. And then we just have to, fingers crossed, and I think we will have 10,000 of our families that are stepped up and have devices already or in the process of purchasing a device to get us over the hump. But in addition, correct me if I'm wrong, you have Canvas that's also interfacing with Focus at the same time?
Yes, sir, that is correct. So we do have some integrations that's taking place between Canvas and Focus, and we're also looking at setting up integrations as well between, we have integrations already set up between Canvas and Zoom. We have integrations set up between Canvas and Teams for video conferencing. Both of those integrations are already complete, and then we're also working on integrating Canvas with some of our other applications as well. And so Canvas really is a very open system. It allows us to integrate it with lots of other systems. And so we're very excited about all the possibilities that exist there for teachers.
And God, these are really historic times for our school district.
Yes.
I mean, it is. I mean, it took this to get us there, but we have gone leaps and bounds from where we've been for decades and decades on one common learning management system, one platform. The Canvas, the assessments grade themselves, then they transfer over into Focus. So it's really a click of a button, really less labor intensive for our instructors. And so this is exciting times, but it hinges on the technology. And so again, I plead to parents out there that if you have devices, please be upfront with us when we make those calls, just to get us through until we get here, and then we're in good shape.
And so may I just follow up on that a little bit? I'm happy to hear that explanation because, we're being peppered with all kinds of questions and we're all excited about where we're going, and we're going to get through this together. And I'm happy to see that we're not being tone deaf about any of these strategies and plans that we're putting in place. And so then my next question would be, and I don't want to get ahead of your presentation, but you did mention earlier about the devices. And so I was wondering, what factors are you going to use in determining how you will distribute these desktops to the students? Period. How will you decide who will get the desktop machines and who will get I'm calling them machines, computers, and who will get the laptops? And then I guess I wanted to add up again, I'm being peppered with questions. The toss, you were mentioning that there was a $34 cost for something and perhaps another $15 cost. Perhaps Justin can answer that for me. But so that we continue to be transparent in what the expectations are, so that once you make these assignments of these pieces of equipment, you know, you can go where you're going and you can get your pilot testing done to see what works and what areas are what area codes. So those are some interests that I'd like to have spoken to as you continue, please, sir.
So especially at the secondary level, we're looking to distribute the desktops first to to middle and high school students, because we know those students. We have a 3-week window in order to get that accomplished. We'll have 2 weeks starting next week to get that accomplished, and we know those kids are going to be in a fixed place for at least the first 9 weeks of the school year. And then for the brick and mortar kids, if we can use those mobile devices, because if something happens on a Sunday and these experts tell us we need to shut Leon High School down for a month, it's going to be then really hard for those kids who don't have anything to go home to. Then they have nothing, and we don't have a way to communicate with them, you know, other than back to what we went through in the spring with Remind and texting and all those other things. And so it's out of the abundance of caution that the worry is if we gave all of the mobile devices out, and then we rush home, and then we're trying to frantically scramble to get the desktops broken down and into homes at the 11th hour. That is the logic behind or the reason behind our approach. You know, some may question this approach. I understand it's not, you know, in a perfect world, again, we'd have 32,500 Chromebooks to be handing out on the first day of school, but we don't, and we need everything in our arsenal to throw at this until that shipment arrives.
Mr. Superintendent, I'd like to comment on that. Ms. Bowen, I'm sure that some of the folks you're hearing from have different questions than some of the people who've been contacting me. And I just want to say for a couple of things. First of all, the entire world is trying to shift to a digital format, not just our country, but every industry out there. I mean, even in non-education spaces, businesses are having Zoom meetings, right?
Absolutely.
And so everybody, not just educators, but every entity, everybody is trying to find new devices. So we find ourselves in a very crowded space trying to acquire devices. Now, you mentioned a minute ago that it took this to get us here. I've said all along, we've been talking about one-to-one since I've been on this board for, I don't know, at least 5 or more years. Why haven't we done it before now? Well, let's see. We had Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. We've had a recession. We've had any number of things that have kept us from making progress on any number of other things that we would have ordinarily progressed upon. So on the one hand, I look at COVID as an accelerator for something, not a reason for it. So the silver lining here may be that, okay, finally, now we are being forced to take these steps that we wish we could have taken before now. That said, we're taking these steps forward in the midst of a crowded field. And so already everybody and their brother was trying to buy devices, and then they were coming from a country that has had floods, an explosion. I can't even remember all the things that have happened that caused those devices to not get here. And so for the most part, I think most of our families, most of our people in this community understand this. They know that we are working as hard and as tirelessly as we can. But I also think, and I'm sorry to say this, because I think hardly anybody listening is going to believe me, but I do think there are people out there that have an agenda of their own that are trying to sabotage this. And they are trying to make sure that we don't succeed. And I'm telling you, right now, anything could happen. There are 30 some odd school districts that are opening schools this week in Florida. So the only constant about this whole thing has been change the whole time. from the minute we started talking about this back in February or March, we were more focused back then on cleaning our hands than we were about face masks. Now we're on face masks. It just is a constantly changing environment. The only constant is change. The only thing that we haven't changed on is that education is essential and health and safety for all is paramount, and those are not mutually exclusive. So, if we have to pivot again next week or in 2 weeks, our kids need devices so that we can go to all digital. If we have to, we don't know what we're going to have to face in 2 or 3 weeks. So for those families who I believe, by the way, I think I'm on the listserv for every school, I think, in my district at least, and more. And every time I've seen principals handing out, here's where we think we are. Thank you for your patience. Here to the families. And by the way, the devices aren't quite here yet. Can you let us know if you have a device for your child at home? This is not going, we have improved. This is not going to be the same as it was the last quarter of the last school year. It's not. It's going to be way better. But we still need devices and connectivity. And so for those families that have access to those devices and the ability to have a bring your own device, we need your help. And for those who don't, we need to know that too, because we have, I'm told by our CFO and everybody else that I've been talking to for the past couple of months, that we have managed to come together to pull our devices together to give devices to enough of the kids in the digital academy. But this whole thing could change. Mr. Superintendent was saying, we're all moving ahead like we're going to be in a physical space for the first 9 weeks, but that may not end up being true. Anything can change in a day, in a week. So we have to move forward as if we have all these contingency plans, and all of those plans are based on our ability to provide this technical device. All of it, including the Digital Academy. So I just wanted to say, for the people in this community who have supported us and been cheerleaders for us and have been behind us and with us through all of this, which is the vast majority of human beings in this community that I love and we all love, thank you. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for working through it. Thank you for helping us figure it out. For the naysayers out there that have their own agenda that are trying to sabotage us, enough. This is an emergency. This is a crisis. We don't have time for it. And I am tired of the sickening games that are being played. We are human beings with a real problem. These children need to be educated, and they need a device to get it done. And we're all doing the best we can. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
I think she can drop the mic and we just go home, right?
Get told.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Ms. Wood.
And thank you for that. Superintendent, and I think Ms. Bowen brought this up too. So obviously lugging desktops home to people's houses is not ideal. You said that, we know that. I'm sure that, anyway. So I hope we can get some more donated or something from the community, because those aren't going to go over like a lead balloon. But having said that, are we going to provide the microphone, the camera, the Ethernet cable to anyone we give a desktop to, so that they can hook up and be part of the plan?
I'm asking for our parents to help. Because if we commit to buying $500,000 worth of cameras and the USB plugins for wireless access, in total it's $44. And I'm asking parents, we're giving you a computer, we're giving you a device. If you can help us, help us. If you can't, then we'll help you. But if you can help yourself, just like you would with school supplies, because the supply list of being in the Digital Academy at home should not be very long. So if you can help us, if that is your school supply list, then please help us. If you can't, then absolutely, we're not going to have a child do without.
Mr. Jones.
The Superintendent, this is Daryl Jones.
Mr. Jones has been trying to be recognized. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Ms. Wood.
Ms. Wood, did you have another question? I'll defer to you, but then after that, I'd like to be next.
Okay, I just wanted to finish up on that. So I'm hearing that we'll have some sort of scholarship fund or something for people who say, I just don't have that $50, but are they going to have to go out and order it and buy it and all that?
Yes,
between
we
now
cannot,
and-
we have tried, this is one of those technology things, we have tried to buy in bulk. We have about 3,500 cameras that have microphones in them, and we have about 3,500 of those wireless connectors that kids, especially those kids that have mobile hotspots, will have to have because they won't have a hardwire to plug into. But we are asking for the community's support. I am asking for the community's support. Now, the camera with the microphone for older kids, just like you could right now, you could still be in this meeting, you could still be in this class. We just wouldn't necessarily see you in this meeting or in this class, but you would still see your teacher, you would still see the smartboard, you would still see the PowerPoints, you would still see everything. That he or she just would not see you. So it's not a deal breaker because those children with the desktop still are going to see exactly the same thing as everybody else that's in the class, or that has a camera with a microphone. They just have to go into the chat to raise their hand, right? And the teacher cannot physically see them in that space. That's the drawback.
Okay, well, I hear you. This is not ideal and we're doing the best we can, but I think people need to know right away if they need to order a microphone and a camera. So I know everybody's doing as best they can. I understand.
We are, Miss Wood, and it's either that or we go out and buy 10,000 cameras at $40. That's $400 and something thousand. And we can't find them. I mean, we can't get them in bulk. But I think they can nickel and dime them from Best Buy and Amazon.com, and there's all kind of places to nickel and dime them. But for us to try to find them in large quantities and to get them here is a challenge. So, but it's not a deal breaker. What is a deal breaker is them not having a device at all at home.
Right. Well, hopefully the community will hear that and step up and donate. So I'll defer to Mr. Jones because he's waiting. But
Yes, he is. And then I'll ask next.
Mr. Jones.
Mr. Superintendent, Madam Chair, hats off to the entire staff and everything that they've been doing to prepare us for these virtual options for our families. And I thank them for their hard work and for the things that they're doing to identify technology for our families. However, my continuing concern remains that based upon our surveys that we do online, we send out digital surveys to persons who are already hampered by the digital divide. And I wonder about the paucity of the number that you described that have the bandwidth to have the type of internet access where learning can occur for families that have a number of children in the same household who will have to have the bandwidth to be able to successfully engage in learning at multiple schools, all from the same household. I want to know that we're going to be able to, if that's a part of what we're asking our parents, and if we're using digital surveys to inform our decision making for populations that are not online and are not responsive to digital surveys, will we be adequately prepared? That is my concern.
Yeah.
I know that, for example, when we talk about these desktop computers, well, what about the family that has 4 and 5 kids who are enrolled in public schools in both elementary, middle, and high school, and then all of those children online at the same time? And so this is a concern that is legitimate. And I know there's an issue of concern in terms of bandwidth, particularly for those persons who are outside the urban service area, like Woodville, Chairs, my school, Fort Braden. Those types of technology questions have to be answered. And I'm also concerned, right? We talk about the investment of $35 and $40 with working class families, and with working class families, that can be the difference between prescription medicine or a meal, right? We're already being responsive to the meals because we know that our working class families have these as barriers. I just want, and I appreciate what has been our ongoing concern, Perhaps, as Madam Wood has described and Ms. Bowen, when we reach out to our community, our ask has been great. Our colleague, Alba Striplin, has shown us that the community is very responsive in terms of buying technology to ensure that young people can learn. She was able to raise a great deal of money in a matter of weeks to equip more than 200 young people. We may need to expand our ask beyond just internet access, but also to devices as well as the accoutrements for those older devices, microphones, cameras, because what has to happen, we cannot take for granted that the young people who we're asking to now learn in a platform that is foreign to them, to do it at a lesser advantage when we've already touted the fact that if we use these blended models, they'll be able to enjoy the same type of experience as the brick and mortar kid. So however, I know that we're doing a great deal, but we need to ask our community to be all in and be a part of the same. And those targeted populations that I've described must be equally and equitably served. And however we do that, both with community buy-in and from the district, has to be considered. And I'm grateful for what you've done thus far.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. To one of your points, it's not the online survey is a first step, but we are actively calling every single family on the phone. So it's not just a survey, we're calling every family to gather this information.
Ms. Bowen, you're muted.
I am. Thank you.
Now we can hear you.
You can hear me now,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
I'm just talking to myself over here. One of the things I'm interested in, Mrs. Superintendent, and perhaps it's been mentioned already, and I just didn't hear it. But when we start to look at bandwidth and do the sampling of where students in each one of the area codes, if they are able to gather or hear the information and to determine to see how that is working, is that part of what you're planning to do? And I'm glad that we're not being tone deaf by this and just rushing past it all, because this sounds so trite, but I really want us not to leave any child behind. We are at a place in this community where I think unemployment is high. And as Mr. Jones stated, $50 is $50 and can serve to go a long, long place in many of our homes. And so as we continue to work, and the work has been great, I certainly am not saying that it has not been. You know, I'm part of this team and trying to make sure that we get the best for our children, but we keep talking about live learning and that kind of thing. And we still don't know when the laptops are coming. So to make sure that once the sampling is done and we know that these kids are going to get what they need in the number of laptops in houses and just a myriad of problems that I think we need to zero in on to make certain that learning is smooth and our teachers and our students are still getting the maximum use of education on a daily basis. So I just need to come back and say I think what has already been said, and we'll continue to do what we need to do.
So quickly to your point, two things. One, we talk about other school districts in the country. I've seen school districts in Georgia that were going to be open brick and mortar, and then they changed and they were 100% digital. Then they went to some Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Then they went back to brick and mortar, and now they're all digital again. And then they tried to run a stress test on the digital platform, and the stress test failed.
Mm-hmm.
So look, don't feel like we're the only yo-yo in the universe right now. But to your point, we are a web-based group, and I've been assured by Mr. Nimmons and Mr. Joyner we won't experience that problem when we do our stress test next week. As far as in the individual home, to Mr. Jones's point, from what I've gathered, this method by which we are having this remote in to our classrooms doesn't require a significant amount of bandwidth, but it is certainly something if you have 4 or 5 children at home all at the same time with one hotspot, we need to look into that as well. So,
Absolutely.
but in the meantime, and I hear you, $50 is $50, and but also here, Mr. Jones said if you want to see where someone's priorities are, look at their checkbook. So, and we'll do the best that we can with all the resources that we have available until those tablets arrive.
Madam Chair.
All right, thank you,
Ms.
sir.
Striplin.
I want to leave the vulnerable behind. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm working on computer contacts as we speak. This is so not specific to us. It's the headline of the national news every single night. Every single night is schools, states, counties. I mean, it is nationwide and it is worldwide, and we're all frustrated. And I thank people for their patience, but I'm like a little bit like Ms. Rasmussen. I'm growing. I feel my frustration. I'm just like, what else do you want us to do? I mean, we're doing everything we can, and God knows Superintendent and Dr. Gale and everyone at this district is doing all they can. So I'm gonna, as I listen to what's going on, all I can think about is how can we fix this? How can we fix this? And so I want two possible alternatives. I'm sure people have already thought about it, but I know when we started looking for devices for the agency, we reached out to the community and asked them to donate. There are families that have one sitting in the closet because they bought a new one this year, or they bought a graduation gift for their child, or they upgraded. Please donate that to Leon County Schools. What we ran into at the agency was it does need to be wiped, but we have an IT department, so hopefully there would be some availability there. I would imagine our community would step up to the plate for that. The second thing is our county is offering, as part of the CARES funding beginning Monday, grant funding of up to $20,000 for every nonprofit. And I would suggest that Leon County Schools Foundation apply for that $20,000 for what we're just talking about, the Wi-Fi I want to call it doppelganger, but it's not. I know what you're talking about. The camera, imagine how far $20,000 could go to purchase some of those things. So please, I hope the foundation, I'm sure they're already on this. I think every nonprofit in town is, but it is for COVID specific related purchases for those in need that your nonprofit has faced. So that opens up Monday, and I would highly recommend that we go after some of that money for that purpose. So, those are two things that I would suggest that we all share with our community is please donate, and then let's see if we can get some of those purchased as well. And thirdly, I know that Florida State University acquired a substantial number of laptops prior to the spring retreat, as we're now calling it. I don't know. I've been told, but I don't know for a fact exactly what happened to those. I think they would be a resource. I do know for a fact that when furniture and other things are surplused at Florida State, and I don't know if it's true at TCC or FREEM at Florida A&M, that computers are not a part of what their surplus will accept. And so they are allowed to donate their computers to 501c3s. So I would encourage the foundation to reach out to FSU, Florida A&M, TCC, and any other college or university that they can find.
We have, and I actually had as early as today, a conversation with President Thrasher's Chief of Staff, Liz Hurst, who's public school advocate. So she's working with the president to see if they have any resources. So we're looking under every rock we have in our community to pull together resources to get us through. But we're gonna be okay. Everybody take a deep breath. We're gonna be all right. Okay, switching gears to another hot topic. At this time, I want Dr. Cox, if you would, come in and talk a little bit about safety protocols, masks with Dr. Rogers, and the two big things that I know that Ms. Wood's been hammering on that we are getting close to is the protocols and procedures for both masks and internet use that Dr. Rogers will speak to in just a minute. So, Dr. Cox.
Okay, great. Let me give everybody a kind of a mask update. Do y'all think 2 years ago would have even known what that meant? It's interesting. But I've been giving these mask updates for all these board meetings. But let me read this to you. And this has been on the local media, so it's nothing new. But Leon County Schools partnered with Marvel Mask Project, who has made thousands of H600 masks for Taos Memorial Hospital. Using recycled Halyard material, this church group prepares kits of 10 masks each and distributes kits to volunteers several times a week through a drive-by pickup and delivery system. Mask makers and many community volunteers have also volunteered and committed to helping. Through this effort, Leon County Schools will have a total of at least 2,000 completed masks ready to be delivered by August the 17th. Additionally, at least 1,000 pre-cut pieces of Halyard material that can be placed in a cotton pocket mask will also be provided. Let me stop there and mention to you something about the mask. So this is the material, the surgical gown material that was recommended by the chief clinical officer at the hospital there. And this is what they give to all of their employees. The only ones that wear the N95 are the ones that actually work in the COVID ward. But all of their employees, especially emergency room folks, come in contact with COVID positive people quite often. So this is what was recommended from them. However, there's a chance that our employees may not like the style mask, and that's perfectly fine. It's the kind that has four individual tie straps so you can adjust it. But what we're also going to give them is pieces of the material, cut out squares, and then they can cut it and fit in the mask that they like. So if they have a cotton mask or a cloth mask of some kind that they prefer, like I know I do, they can take this and they can put it on the inside. So it gives it just as much protection in a mask that they prefer. During the first week back, teachers will have an opportunity to see the mask and determine if they would like to use them. So we're going to have an initial allotment out there, but there's a good chance that they may want to stay with what they've got or make the modification. Each school will tally the number of additional masks needed, and production will continue until everyone that wants a mask or an insert has one. As the mask will wear out, each school can continue to receive additional masks as replacements as long as necessary. So we have commitment from these volunteers and this that we will keep producing these things. I wanted to show you. This is what we're going to give them. This is they'll get a little bag here. It has one mask in it, and it has directions in it that tells them multi-use, wash at home, hot soapy water and dryer, when to throw it away, contaminated with blood, respiratory nasal secretions, other body fluids. It gives them, so it tells them how to clean it, when to throw it away, when to get another mask. And he just recommended that, like with clothes, I guess, that it be cleaned prior to the first use. So that's the update on the mask piece. Rocky had talked to you earlier about the gaiters and the bandanas, and I as well have seen the research out of Duke and got sent that 5 times this morning from all kind of different places. So but the bottom line is the CDC still says cloth face coverings are appropriate, and it helps slow the spread. And that's still the recommendation. And I think we have nearly 400,000 of those ready to give out, and half of them in child size and adult size. So we still have all of those as well. So I think we're sitting pretty good on the mask side of it. We'll be ready for school to start, and we have a surplus with that. Now, continuing with the mask discussion, Dr. Rogers has drafted procedures. And remember, last board meeting, I presented some policy. She presented some policy. And now we're adding to the procedures part that tell you how to make it happen and to give us some guidance. So Dr. Rogers, if you can take it now.
Dr. Cox.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Cox, I'd also like to acknowledge another community-based effort, Masks for Class. This is a group of persons from across persons who can sew, and other seamstresses and tailors and persons of goodwill who come together on Thursdays at the former Tallahassee Mall. And I know that they are doing hundreds, if not thousands, of masks. Every Thursday they come together, and we'll have those ready for us at the beginning of the school year. And I just wanted to acknowledge their efforts to supplement what we'll already have for the beginning of the school year, and we'll be making a distribution closer to the beginning of the school year. Dr. Doris Richards and Miss Adrienne Stevenson are leading that community-based effort.
Hey, thank you so much, Mr. Jones, for mentioning that group. And hopefully the next board meeting or two here, I'll have a list of everybody that's involved in helping to, it's really been, the community has really jumped on board with this thing. I know they jumped early with the hospital, but now they're working with their local school system. So that's a great thing. Dr.
Dr.
Rogers?
Cox?
Yes, I'm sorry, Roseanne.
Just real quick, so we're going to have, it sounds like, plenty of masks to give out to students. So as we talk about moving to the student part of this, we're going to require students to wear real masks, right? Not handkerchiefs or bandanas.
That is correct.
I don't know if there's any. Okay, well, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that. A
Absolutely.
handkerchief is not going to work.
No.
Okay,
Yes.
let's continue.
Yep.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Superintendent, Madam Chair, and board members. Going off of what Dr. Cox just mentioned, you should have a form in front of you that reflects COVID-19 procedures for face covering. Now, this is a document that was created to reflect the non-compliance procedures that will be followed with respect to board policies. The first offense is an informal infraction that is tied to the student's failure to comply with the established requirements for student health, safety, and welfare, which includes the dress code as well as the safety protocols. It outlines a teacher or staff member notifying the administration, the student being taken out of class, parent being contacted, and conference with the administration. Now, informal consequences that would be applied according to the policy is addressed as such thing as a written warning or reprimand, school detention, privileges withdrawn, or a referral to what we have in our schools at present, New Horizons, and encouragement from the administration to participate in New Horizons. Now, the second offense, also tied to board policy, would be for repeated failure to comply with established requirements for student health, safety, and welfare, including the dress code and safety protocols. Now, this is a formal infraction, and the consequences can be informal or formal based on our district policy. Now, there's a special note there that says that at the discretion of the principal or the principal's designee, a request may be made to the superintendent to temporarily reassign a student to protect the health, safety, and welfare of students and staff. And this is what we have, and we are trusting that our administrators within their respective places would use this particular protocol to deal with non-compliance of face coverings. Any questions so far?
Miss Dr. Rogers?
Yes, sir.
As a part of our protocols regarding masks, are we also taking into consideration messaging or language on masks? I know that there is the potential for derogatory or inappropriate or profane things to be on the mask. The teacher will have the discretion to replace that mask with a mask that they would provide. Say, for example, if a kid came with one with the Confederacy on it, or with a swastika, or something, or dirty words on it, right? Although we want them in the mask should not be offensive either. And I don't know if that's covered in your protocol.
It's not written here on this protocol.
It would be just
And
like it
this-
would be just like a T-shirt or anything else that was disruptive to the school environment. If the kid's wearing something that's
right.
disruptive, then they will be disciplined accordingly. Yes, absolutely.
It's in board policy, yes, sir, and we can notate that. And I do want to say that this particular document that you have in your hand is different from the one that was previously shared. These are procedures that we are expected our administrators to follow through with respect to the face coverings. Are there any additional questions?
Dr. Rogers, I just wanted to say thank you. I like this much better than the first draft. I think it's clearer and a little stricter, which I appreciate. And so thank you for that. And are we going to get around to how we're going to have parents and students sign off on this? I saw that you had a
Yes,
form.
I'm about to do that.
Okay, I'll wait for that.
I'm moving into another document that you should have in front of you, which is the acknowledgement form. The acknowledgement form, the front side, is something that we have been distributing for the past few years. New to that is the flip side of that particular form, the acknowledgement form. And what we have done with that form is that we have addressed there, it addresses our attendance policy 5200, which requires that parents and students acknowledge that attendance will be taken in both the bricks and mortar as well as distance learning environment. And it is the parents and students' responsibility to make sure that the student attends classes as assigned. The form also outlines that non-compliance of the safety protocols will result in invoking the progressive discipline plan to include both informal and formal consequences, again, as outlined in board policy. The form also specifies that if compliance with the safety protocols are not attainable to protect the health and safety and welfare of the students and staff, the superintendent has the authority to reassign students to their assigned school's digital academy. This form will be signed both by the parent and the student. We are also going to provide this document, as we've done in the past, in a Spanish version, and also it will be placed in focus. It will be placed in focus along with the third document that you have in front of you, which is the Student Internet Use Access Permission Form. This form is a form that we have just tweaked a little bit with two particular things. The first one, it was updated with what is expected as the role for the parent and the student in the digital academy. And under acceptable uses of the network, it includes a statement that recording of teachers during lessons without their approval and posted to the social media is not acceptable. For the superintendent, both this particular form, the student internet form, as well as the acknowledgement form, will be placed in focus, and parents are encouraged, if they have not done so, to sign up and activate their parent account so that they can sign off on these two documents prior to having access to the student schedule and other content in focus.
Great. I was just going to say that if there has to be a little bit of a stick with this, and so not providing the student's schedule until that's signed off on sounds like a great plan to me.
Okay. And basically that's the three forms that we have updated and tweaked with everyone's input so far: the acknowledgement form, the COVID-19 procedures for face covering, as well as the student internet use access permission form. And that's all.
I think, Ms. Wood, I know from my listservs that I participate on, the student at least the drafts of the student schedules are already out there. They're subject to change because principals are still trying to juggle class size and teacher load and all of that. But I just want to be, I'm not sure.
They are. I mean, but to your point, we're still, leveling classes and doing things like that. So there was a way, some kids have already kind of gotten in and started looking at their schedules. But that is, to your point, subject to change. Nothing's final until we send it out.
So Superintendent, am I getting your sign off on that, that we're not going to allow students to basically go to class? They won't have a schedule until this is acknowledged and signed off on by the parent and student?
Well, I would hope that my assistant superintendent wouldn't say something that I was in agreement to. So, yeah, yes, ma'am. We want to ensure from the very beginning that the rules are clear. These are the expectations. So yes, ma'am. We want to do that. We've heard you loud and clear, and I agree with you 100%.
Okay, thank you so much. First days is critical.
Yes.
We don't want to be like Georgia. Just saying.
All right, Mr. Superintendent?
So with that, I'm gonna go to any additional questions. I'm looking at you, Ms. Wood. You mentioned something about regarding mass breaks was one of your questions. We have not, with the CDC says 6 feet or more, we can give mass breaks. But we're going to rely on the teachers and their comfort level to kind of guide us. We don't want to I'm not in favor of setting a strict rule. We all know, like in here, we're all 6 feet or more apart. There's about 20 of us in here, 17, 18 of us in here. By the guidelines, we could certainly pull our mask down. We have chosen not to. Everyone's here has a mask on. So if the teacher said, hey guys, pull your mask down for 5 or 6 minutes and get some fresh air, get some air, I think that's well within their rights. If they cannot get the 6 feet or more, then obviously they would not be able to do that. We need to try to get them outside as much as possible. So those extended class times in secondary will allow for kids getting outside and getting some fresh air. And look, teachers are going to want some fresh air too. I just feel as though I don't want to over govern and make things where it's not flexible for teachers.
Mr. Superintendent, Madam Chair.
Jones.
Yes, I know that Ms. Wood brings up a very interesting point. Depending upon what will be the possible response, much as what we've seen in other jurisdictions that have already opened and a high incidence of infection immediately following the reopening of schools, is there a plan B that the district has in hand that that is at the ready for us to respond to?
Plan B to what? What do you?
If there's a high incidence of infection, like we've seen in Georgia, as Ms. Wood has described, is there a plan B for our enrollment of our schools?
Yeah, the plan B is working with those medical experts from both hospitals, working with Rob McQueen, working with the school site administrator to give us guidance. If we need to shut a school down for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, or whatever it is, we're going to address it on those schools on a case-by-case basis. And I think that's what, having listened now to this Commissioner of Education, that's what he wanted from day one. When I walked out there on March the 12th, he was mocking the state universities and saying, don't shut down your entire community, fight it on a case-by-case, school-by-school basis. Now, the next day, the governor pulled him aside and said, look here, everybody's going home, and that's what they did. But now the recommendation, again, is to fight it on a school-by-school, case-by-case basis with that guidance from those individuals that we've already been in daily contact with, from the health department to the 2 major hospitals, and it may be a school-by-school basis or the entire district. But it's going to be something that we put under each school under a magnifying glass every single day and to know what's going on.
I think if you read the Commissioner of Education's letter to Hillsborough School District, you'll see that it is not only school by school, but class by class. And I think that we should join with the Superintendent's Association in asking the Florida Surgeon General to opine with these guidelines. It's great that we have our 2 hospitals, but as we have heard over and over, our Department of Health has said that they don't feel that they have the legal authority to give us very specific guidelines. And so if it's coming from the state that we need to, we have to open brick and mortar 5 days a week, then it seems like the Surgeon General would be an appropriate authority to give us the same kind of guidance on the health side as the Education Commissioner would be giving us on the education side.
Potentially, yeah.
So I'm grateful to our partners, the two hospitals. I'm very pleased that we have this committee. As you know, I wanted a chief medical officer and a committee, but this is a good first step. And so I'm grateful for the partnership with our Department of Health and the two hospitals and for their expertise. But I really think that we should join with the Superintendent's Association asking for the Surgeon General to give us that kind of medical clarification.
Well, and y'all saw the
Madam
article
Chair,
that went
your
out of.
point is well made, Madam Chair, because we've already been made aware in most recent headlines that the health departments across the state of Florida had been advised to not provide the type of guidance that we have oftentimes solicited regarding the reopening and the closing of our schools. So we've got to have the type of and I know Miss Claudia Blackburn personally. She is a fine professional and epidemiologist. However, with the type of instruction that we heard that has come from the governor's office, we need to make certain that we are equipped with the best information to be able to make the types of decisions in real time to the benefit of our students and our faculty and our schools.
Yeah, I said 2 months ago when we had the initial conversation with Claudia and her team, I knew something was amiss. I mean, there was obviously a disconnect between the Department of Education and the Department of Health, and now we know what that disconnect is. But to your point also, Mr. Jones, and I think y'all would say exactly what I'm saying here. If we see things that are not going well while we're looking through this microscope, through this magnifying glass, and we go home and they want to come take our money, then you just gotta have to come take it. You know, we're going through this. We owe it to the community to reopen. I truly believe that in my heart. I think we've prepared the best we possibly can. But if we see, and on their advice, that whether it's by a school or by the entire county, that we need to shift, and the state doesn't, find that appropriate, then we'll just go to war with them. We'll just go to court. But in the meantime, I think again we owe it. We're positioned now. Teachers are coming back on Monday. 2 weeks later, we're going to welcome our 32,000 students back, whether it's in brick and mortar face-to-face or bring the classroom to them at home. And so, but in the meantime, yes, we will be monitoring exactly what goes on, class by class, school by school, district by district.
Madam Chair. Ms. Striplin.
Thank you. Just one quick question. You guys have touched on so many that I had, so I think we've got all the answers covered. Is there anything we can do to assure our community that our high school hallways will not look like what was broadcast all over from Georgia? What have we discussed at the high school level to make sure that is not going to happen?
Can I ensure 100% that will not happen?
That's what I knew you were going to say, but I want our
No,
community
but I will say this. We had the same fear when we had high school graduation ceremonies. They're not going to do what we asked. They're not going to do the right thing. They're going to have a mosh pit in the middle of the parking lot. All we can do is plead to their sense of right. And a lot of times, in having worked with these kids 30 years, they'll do the right thing, right? I mean, I really believe that. The problem is you have other communities where masks are optional. And it's almost like a sign of weakness if you wear a mask. We are not that community. Look at us. We don't believe in that. We believe in science. We believe in the health experts, and every health expert says wear the things, whether they're comfortable or not. And our kids will understand that too. In other communities, even surrounding us, masks are optional, right? In Leon County, they are not.
But, as I said or tried to recommend a few weeks ago, I think we will have mitigated most of the risk if everyone understands the rules of the road. Where are the stop signs? Where are the red lights? So in the hallways of Leon High School, well, let me go back to your example. I believe the high school graduations were a huge success because we had the rules of the road that were made very, very clear to parents and students. They were told exactly what was going to happen. When you get there, this is how you raise your hand to get a golf cart to the restroom. This is what's going to be allowed to get out of the car. This is what's not allowed. Well, in the hallways of a high school, are there going to be I hate to say this, but at Publix, I'm still having a hard time figuring out which aisle am I allowed to go down which way, because it's not, are there going to be traffic patterns that can be somewhat controlled, or will this be explained to the students so that they understand what the expectation is?
Where we can, we will. But trying to do directional halls in a high school, kids they'll be all over the place. So what we're saying is keep moving. Stay against
Don't
the walls and keep moving. Go straight from one class to the other. Don't stop. We're not
So no
water fountains.
loitering. Okay, that's a
There's no
rule.
loitering.
No
We
loitering.
cut down the length of time in between classes from 6 to 5 minutes. We've limited the transitions to, there's only 2 transitions. There's not 5 transitions anymore because we've extended class time. They're only going to 3 classes per day. So they're only twice a day that they'll have that between their first and second block and between their second and third block. And the message is no stopping and making out with your girlfriend at the locker this year. You just keep moving. Go to your next class.
Okay, no loitering. That's a
No
rule.
loitering. There you go.
Mask in the hallways.
Mask in the hallways. What about leaving campus for lunch?
We're leaving campuses open.
Madam Chair?
Can we finish hearing the rest of that sentence?
Okay.
So Ms. Wood brought up the thought of closing high school campuses. We would have to add at least another. We already went from 1 lunch to 2 lunches. For some of the larger high schools, we would have to add a 3rd or a 4th lunch by allowing kids off campus. Kids are already going to carpool to and from school together. Siblings and friends are going to ride to the school and back. I just think, and getting from the feedback from the 6 high school principals, they would like to keep campuses open, which would get us a large number of kids off, so you don't have as much density congregating during the lunch period.
Well, for very different reasons, we began a discussion about this during the very right after the incident, the tragedy at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, about one way in, one way out, closing open campuses for security purposes. So I think we need to keep the communication or the conversation alive, that maybe this is the impetus for reevaluating, but probably not right this minute at this late hour.
I know that was one of Ms. Wood's things she probably wanted to speak
I'm
to.
sorry, did I take your thunder? Sorry.
There's no thunder to be had, but just, I do think it's, of course, a better idea that kids don't leave lunch. It's the thing they look forward to the most. And, but I understand that if you can't do it, you can't do it. And I've talked to a couple of high school principals who said that it's just couldn't do it. So I accept that. The one thing I just want to go back to, and I don't want to beat a dead horse about this mask thing and wearing it, but I think it's really important at the school level that teachers be pretty in sync about what the rules are going to be about when they can take a mask off. Because what I don't happen is for teachers to get pitted against each other because one teacher says, well, you have 6 feet, so you don't have to wear a mask the whole period. And they go into Miss Jones' class and they don't let them take it off at all. I just, maybe that has to be done at the local school level, but I really strongly encourage that there be some consistency within a school at least, so that we don't have this discordance, but that parents and teachers, students are complaining about so-and-so because they're stricter about this. There are a lot of health reasons to not take your mask off in a room. I don't care how many feet, just like you have right now. If someone in the room that you're in right now took their mask off and happened to be positive and happened to cough in the room, you would all, be more at risk than if everyone had on their mask. So I really hope that we don't want to make, I know, elementary is different than middle is different than high school. So I understand why you don't want to make a hard and fast rule, but I really think it's important to have consistency at the school that teachers buy into as a group.
I thought we had already managed that with the policy that we've already put forward, that we would have that type of consistency, and then that the teachers would be able to use their individual discretion relative to mask breaks, but masks were to be worn at all times for anyone who was in any of our facilities, both students, faculty, vendors, and anyone else who came to the school. So I didn't know that there was any option in that regard other than the flexibility as to when mask breaks would be provided.
That's true. In the classroom, that's the only real place that there's flexibility. But I was just suggesting that within a school itself, that they define what a mask break is and that it not be all over the place to provide that consistency within the school.
Okay. Madam Chair, my question Thank you. It's related to that on a case by case, as Mr. Superintendent brought it up, and traffic patterns in our smaller schools with the 6 feet distancing. Have we seen yet in numbers where the 6 feet distancing can even be more prominent and as promised, as given in other school sites?
Absolutely. We have a number of our schools have 8 or 9 kids physically in the class. I mean, there'll be like this. I mean, so by the hybrid model, and when we have, 45% of our students at home. So yeah, we're able to, like I said, at a minimum, I'd be interested now to see at a minimum what we'll be able to get. I said 3 feet. I would say now at a minimum, we're going to be over 4 in every classroom, maybe more than that. And in many others, we'll be over 6.
Okay. All right. Just need to get on the record.
And I don't know why I feel a lot more comfortable tonight when I look behind me than I do on other nights when, they're sitting, as they say in the elementary world, Scott Major, crisscross applesauce on the floor. But it does feel more comfortable only having, 17 or 18 people in this room. Mentally, it is.
Can we get a school by school update, kind of after the first week of what
Sure.
exactly what the
Yeah.
numbers look like? Yeah.
Yeah, now that they've finished the master schedules and they're drilling down on,
Okay.
exactly how many kids in classes, but it's been significantly reduced from where we started. We were thinking 20s, mid 20s, lower 20s, even, but now we're in a position in a much better place. And one reason for that is we have 13,000 some odd that are choosing Digital Academy. And then the other reason too is some of that hybrid model has allowed for even more distancing.
So speaking of the fine people in this room, some of them are patiently waiting for their opportunity to be heard. I'm wondering if you all are feeling like we're ready to move on, or are there other pressing questions we have now that we're meeting every single week and we're emailing our questions in? Lots and lots of additional opportunities to have dialogue.
Well, now that you all have my phone number.
Matt, we could have handled some of this yesterday had we had agenda review.
I have a question, just one more question, please.
Ms. Wood, go right ahead.
Just, Superintendent, could we get an updated chart like we got originally of how many at this point by school are requesting digital and are requesting brick and mortar?
Sure, absolutely. I have that in my hand right now, so I'll send it out. If I can't do it tonight, it'll be first thing in the morning. Absolutely.
Thank you. And also, Dr. Cox promised that we would get a weekly update on employees, so I'd like to make that part of every meeting as well.
And so I think, Dina, do you want to get that now? Do you want just a quick
Sure.
1 minute update on where we are with ADA and teacher leaves? All right, Dina, you there?
And of course, we have a personnel agenda on every meeting, so I was curiously looking at that earlier tonight to see if it was indicative of any major shifts.
Happy birthday, Ms. McAllister. What a better way to celebrate your birthday?
Happy birthday, Ms. McAllister. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Dina.
Thanks, friends. Per the superintendent's request, I want to share with you all this evening that we have about 70 persons who have requested ADA accommodations. Myself, along with our employment attorney and our risk management director, met to review each request individually. We have about 45 that will require an additional conversation to take place with the employee and either the employment or risk management director and myself, because information was inadvertently left off of their form, such as a diagnosis or what the accommodation is that they're requesting, or clarity on additional information as to length of time. So the requirement per law is that we engage in a conversation when information is not on the form. So we're going to be meeting tomorrow beginning at 11 a.m. to begin those discussions. There were some individuals beyond the 45 that requested accommodations that were for other reasons, not necessarily related to COVID. So inadvertently, they may be having surgery and they thought that was the best form to fill out, or they're looking to the future that if something does occur, they want accommodations in place. For that reason, they'll receive documentation from the labor office, which says that they don't have a current ADA request on file, and therefore they'll have to submit one when the appropriate time comes. So it is our goal to have all of these vetted before the end of the week and then reach out or respond to our employees as to the status of their request. Now, I can also share with you, there have been requests, just to give you a frame of reference, the requests have come in such as, can you help ensure that my patients' students are all masked? This will help keep the rate of infection from spreading the classroom, et cetera. Is my patient allowed to bring a humidifier into the classroom? Can you keep the number of students in my patient's class between 9 and 12? So some of the accommodations we will be able to meet. Many of the accommodations are asking for our teachers to teach virtually indefinitely until there is no more COVID. So we have to vet each of these specifically to determine if there are significant other issues that are not outlined on the request.
Can you tell me, in addition to those 70, Dina, how many, I think the other one's resignations and a leave of absence, just quickly, those two numbers?
Right, I have those numbers right here. Currently, we have 61 resignations. We have 22 leaves of absence, and we have 18 retirements. So those persons who are interdrop, who have decided I'm leaving a little early. So again, the numbers are as follow. I see you, Chairperson Didi. It's 61 resignations, 22 leaves of absence, and 18 retirements. And that is of yesterday.
What I'm wondering is how that compares to previous years. I mean, this isn't all just COVID, or is it?
No, I can say most recently, I can't say to you that each one of them is as a result of it, but in keeping the data as of late since June, this seems to be the sparring issue. We usually have about 2,300 teachers. So about 101 of them have requested either to take a leave, resign, or do early retirement. There are some people that are moved now. So every one of these are not COVID related. You are correct. Some teachers are relocating for various reasons, or they're making decisions based on the needs of their families. So.
Thank you, Dina.
Quick question.
Sure.
When I think it was Coco from the Department of Health, she was talking about our children, when parents indicate underlying health conditions, there were certain things that were considered, made them to be considered at risk under COVID, you know, diabetes, or your body mass index, or any of, you know, I've forgotten exactly. There were several things on that list. Are we looking at those same things, and is age one of them for our teachers?
We are looking at all of those factors. Age is, on the ADA form that we have for the district, age does not play a role. Okay, we don't ask an employee their age. What we're looking at is the information the doctor usually attaches a letter that will identify the diagnosis or the concerns that are presented by the pre-existing illness. And we look at what the accommodations are that the doctor is requesting on behalf of the employee. So like I said, it could be ensuring that masks are being worn.
Okay.
Some of the requests have been that the teacher does not have additional duties that would put them in harm's way or at a greater risk, such as being in the hallways or monitoring at lunchtime. Opportunities where masks may be off due to the nature of what's taking place at that time. So all of them are not for virtual teaching at home. And again, the age of the employee is not on the form. We have access to that. I can look it up, but no one has asked for an accommodation, I can assure you, based on their age only.
And I know some of our schools have found themselves in the blessed place of having, you know, the perfect number of teachers for the digital academy and teachers for brick and mortar students. So with or without this accommodation, they've just been fortunate that the math worked out, that these teachers could teach in a digital space, isolated from the general population, and others wanted and could still teach face to face. So I think, you know, I am assuming that what you're receiving, Ms. McAllister, is for those schools where that didn't work out so flawlessly, and their principal has said, I need you to teach 3 face-to-face and 3 digital classes, and so they're coming now. Am I correct about that?
I'm not sure. Well, hold on, Dina, hold on. I mean, I just don't want to, a lot of these details are, I mean, I think, I can't explain exactly what prompted these 70 people to come. I mean, obviously, there's an issue. But I think we've gone into a lot of detail about some of the requests that I'm not really comfortable with.
Okay, that's fine.
You know, I mean, I think the number's the number. You know, it's 70 requests for accommodations, and then the early retirees, and then the 20, I think you said 20, less than 20 leave of absence.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What does a leave of absence mean? Does it mean that
A year. Yeah, and we do that all the time. So,
I know, but does it mean that they're guaranteed a return? A
yeah.
portion
So,
next
well,
year?
yeah, and I have a teacher, you know, my past life as a principal, that would take a leave to go try something new, try something different. But they were an awesome teacher. And so I say, look, go try this, you know, and then if it doesn't work out, things change. I have a job for you waiting when you come back. So once a principal grants a leave of absence, they absolutely have a job waiting for them when they return.
Okay.
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir. Mr. Jones.
I just want to thank Mrs. McAllister and the superintendent for this response. This has been pretty much what I know that Mrs. Wood and I have both been talking about, and that is what we saw as a necessary engagement to be able to mitigate what we knew were teacher apprehensions regarding what they may have identified as pre-existing conditions, and that they would have an audience in our protocols and processes and procedures whereby their concerns could be met, and as the word has been used before, reasonable accommodations could be made. And to know that that process is ensuing, as you described to us a couple of weeks ago with a letter that you sent to all faculty and staff, and that you've now seen the response of some 70 plus persons who have responded to you directly, and their information is now being considered. That's all I've ever wanted, and I appreciate your timely response and the kindness that the district is showing as we show grace to our faculty and staff, the same grace that we've asked from our community. So thank you, Mrs. McAllister, and thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
All right.
I have a question, Madam Chair, as it relates to just haven't heard the number of folk that are retiring or being on leave of absence. How are we going about hiring to replace these individuals? And what is it looking like in the way of getting subs so that classes can still be covered or teaching positions filled?
Great question. Superintendent, would you like me to respond, or would you like to respond?
Briefly, yes.
Okay, so the positions that that become vacant as a result of a resignation or a leave of absence, they are posted through the Office of Human Resources. Principals are advertising those positions, and they are filling those positions. All of our vacant positions have quite a few applicants, which afford our principals an opportunity to find the best fit for their school, to offer interviews, et cetera. As it relates to substitutes, we have over 250 substitutes who have committed to us at this time. We have advertised, and we're interviewing subs daily to make sure that we have a designated amount at each school for the beginning of the school year.
And if I can add to that also, we have waived all fees associated with costs to become a substitute in Leon County. So those of you out there that would like to substitute, come join our ranks. We also raised the salary. When we started a couple years ago, it was $10, and now it's $14 an hour. And we've also waived all the fees associated with the course and with fingerprinting.
I just want to add real briefly, and I don't want you to answer this now, but I do think under these emergency circumstances, I'm wondering if there are ways that we can waive not our security and background check criteria that are of utmost importance, but some of the timing. I know some of the principals, because we had a hiring freeze and now all of a sudden we have vacancies, they feel like they're competing with each other. It takes a good number of days to go through the whole advertising and recruiting process to onboard new teachers. And I just hope that we're taking a critical look at how and if we can use this emergency order to relax some of those less than urgent standards to allow us some more flexibility to get teachers onboarded quicker.
Absolutely. Point well made. And we had a discussion the other day about Sue Crawl consolidating a list of elementary teachers, and Mr. Hanson and Dr. Cox are consolidating by subject a list of secondary teachers. So there's a pool to draw from, to your point.
Great, thank you. All right, are we ready to move on and let these folks who are patiently waiting in the audience be heard? Okay, that takes us to persons to be heard. Our attorney will call out your name. You're to approach the podium when your name is called. You'll have 3 minutes. The lights will be green while you're talking, yellow to warn you time is almost up. And when the red light beeps, Ms. McKinney-Williams will say, your time is up. Not me. She will say that. And we appreciate your trying to be as succinct as you can, and we're grateful that you're here, and we appreciate your input. So,
Thank you, Madam Chair. In addition to the 6 speakers we have here to be heard, there are 153 public comments that have been sent to board members. They were emailed into the persons to be heard at leonschools.net email address. They have been sent to board members. They are attached to agenda item 6.01, and they will be attached to the minutes of this meeting. So, starting with speaker number 1, Jeanne Francois.
Cool name.
I hope I said it right. Please give us your name. Please correct me if I misspoke. Your name and your address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeanne Francois. I live on 123 White Drive. I'm a former student of FAMU. Today, I came to you guys to speak in terms of the health and safety services we wanted to implement. I do understand our students are coming back to school, and we are trying to combat the pandemic, of course. We wanted to figure out what can we do to assist the community in terms of making it a more safe environment, so that way we can mitigate the duress that our faculty and our students undergo, so that way there's no confusion and there's no type of tension, in a sense. I know we're taking necessary precautions. I know you guys are getting certain devices and, the 6 feet rule and the masks and things of that nature. Now, are we in turns going into these classes sanitizing and cleaning them and really taking the real necessary precautions to kind of help the way we would
Hello,
like?
Ms. Owens? Yes. Hey, this is Mrs. McAllister. the
McAllister?
Assistant Superintendent for
Can you mute your phone? Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically that's my take on, not my take, but my question. Now, are we really taking the necessary precautions to sanitize the rooms, the schools themselves? Like, what have we put into place to assist?
Okay, this is an opportunity for you to give public comment. So it's
okay,
for you to speak to the board and say whatever you'd like to say.
All right, well, me and my colleague, Willie Harris, we have an organization called RNS Health and Safety Services, where we in turns go in classrooms and establishments, clean and sanitize and disinfect various areas of the schools or wherever it is that you need, so that way we can better combat the pandemic as said. So my comment is, would you guys allow us an opportunity to go ahead and do so? And what will be the necessary steps for us to get to be able to do that?
I'm sure if you have a card, you could leave it with the superintendent. He will put you in touch with the appropriate staff members who are in charge of this responsibility.
Right. Okay, well, that's pretty much my take on it.
Thanks
Thank
for
you very
coming.
much for your comment.
And do you have a card, by the way?
I do, in fact, have a card, flyer, website.
Okay, good. So you'll get it after Dr. Gale. If you can get it to Dr. Gale when she finishes your area,
Duly
and
noted.
someone will follow up with you all tomorrow, okay?
All right.
Thank you for your support.
The next speaker is Mr. Willie Harris.
He pretty much said everything.
Okay, well,
You wave in support?
You can wave in support. Okay,
How y'all doing, by the way? My name's Willie Harris.
give us your address for the record.
2556 Rumble Court.
Thank you.
Okay, so we just wanted to come to see how we can help the community. We're trying to become active members of the community, and perfect place to come. We're going to start with the schools. We want to go to daycares. We want to go to restaurants. Everywhere in America needs sanitizing. So pretty much we want to offer our services, and we'll get to work tomorrow. We want to start working and fill up our schedules. That's what we came here to figure out. How can we help? We're gonna give the business card to you, and hopefully we get contacted, because we are very serious about making sure everything is safe for everybody, from the children to the senior citizens. Everybody needs to make sure sanitizing is the key right now, the most important thing in the world right now.
I
Thank
do
you
have
for
a
coming.
question
Thank
for you,
you.
if you don't mind, Mr.
Yes,
Harris.
sir.
Do y'all work evenings and weekends?
Anytime, 24 hours.
The correct answer is yes.
Anytime.
Evenings and weekends. All right, great. If you give your card to Dr. Gale, thank you.
It's in the car. We're going to get it.
Madam Chair and Mr. Superintendent,
Like
I'd
that
also like to refer them to our office, the Office of Economic Vitality,
That's right.
that we could also have them certified so that they can also work with the city, the county, and Blueprint, provide their services for our 3 jurisdictions as well. So if Dr. Gill would share that information with me, I too will contact these entrepreneurs.
After
Thank
they
you.
finish with the schools, right, Mr. Jones?
That's great.
Yes, ma'am, after they finish with the student.
Okay, just checking. All right, who's
Good.
next?
Speaker number 3, Jeanne Schroeder.
Ms. Schroeder.
Please give us your full name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Jeanne Schroeder, Glen Meadow Lane. I teach art and culinary careers at Swift Creek Middle School. Both are materials-heavy classes.
Yes.
The county doesn't provide a budget for me. So with that in mind, I cannot purchase anything other than consumables with fees. I need guidance on how to have enough equipment for my students if they do not share supplies. As of this morning, and I do understand these numbers will change, my brick and mortar class sizes were 9, 12, 13, 19, and 14. I have underlying conditions. I met with my doctor yesterday. My doctor directed that while in school, I wear N95 or KN95 masks at all times. Cloth is fine outside the school environment, but within the school, that's what she's directed. My concern is with the discipline policy relating to masks. Improper masks are a dress code violation currently, a Class 1 offense. I've looked at what went out a couple of days ago. I don't know if it's changed since then. Other Class 1 offenses include short skirts, lying, tardy, profanity, and cheating. Class 2 offenses include matches, laser pen, and skipping. Where do we put the safety of others? Improper face covering is putting our school populations at risk. Now, I know this is going extreme, but if a child had a knife in their backpack, another child reports it to an adult, the knife is found, the student goes home. The knife was never taken out of the backpack, it was just there, a perceived threat. As soon as someone without a properly worn face covering exhales or speaks, there is potential of risk to the health and well-being of others. For this potential threat, students will be given 4 chances. I'm not talking about the child who forgets to pull it up when they come inside. They're kids, they forget. I'm speaking of the defiant child refusing to wear a mask or consistently taking off that mask. And part of the program is they go to OFI, Opportunity for Improvement. What about the kids in that room? Are they at risk now? As a school district, our claim is safety comes first. Does it? Whose safety? 4 is too many chances. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think if it hasn't,
It has been.
I think it has been changed, so we'll ask someone to send you the latest version of the policy. But I want to point this out, a procedure, excuse me. I read your email before the crack of dawn this morning, and I began asking a bunch of questions. And this is what I've been saying over and over, is that your voices are important. We need to hear from you. I just wrote down, what do you do about art supplies and culinary supplies that have to be shared or can't be shared, and so how do we pay for them? And so I want you to know that I read your email, and I believe that your email had a lot to do, along with a lot of other people who had input into making our policies and procedures better. And I hope everybody who's watching and listening believes that, because we are in this together as a community. None of us have been down this road before, and we need everybody's constructive suggestions. And so I thank you for being here, and I believe it mattered.
Madam Chair, the next speaker is Ashley Mayo. Please come give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Ashley Mayo, at Woodmill Lane. Thank you. Good evening. I've been a school counselor in Leon County Schools for 13 years, both at the high school and elementary school levels. I do want to thank y'all for all you're doing. This is unprecedented time, so thank you for all you've done. I know I speak for myself and many others, majority, that we want to be back at work. We miss our students, our faculty, families. We just want to do it safely, and I know we're all trying to do that. I just have kind of a list of questions that I think we would all feel more comfortable having answers to prior to August 31st. On a personal note, I'm also 5 months pregnant, so with a lot of unknowns there, just definitely more curious and trying to find answers that I can before the kids come. About masks. Students that will have exemptions, what are those exemptions? And then will teachers and parents be notified prior to school starting if a student or employee without a mask or with a mask exemption is in their room? What safety procedures will be in place when there is more than one exemption in a class? With safety, how can we ensure safety and preventing transmission of COVID if eating in closed rooms such as a classroom? What will be the criteria for shutting down a school and the district? I know we mentioned subs. That was very helpful, the sub discussion I hadn't heard. But if someone is digital academy teaching, will they be asked to be a sub if they are needed in the classroom? Will digital academy teachers be required to serve in in-school duties? Will teachers be allowed to wear scrubs if they choose? Who is cleaning and sanitizing, and what risks are there with that role? Also, as a counselor and at the elementary level, we are also in special area wheel. We end up teaching majority of the school along with art, music, PE. I haven't really heard guidance on that as far as if the students will be bringing their own personal materials with them, or we know we can't really share, so I would like more clarity on that. And again, counselors, I know if we don't have an assigned class at the time, oftentimes we're pulled for certain things. I would be curious, will we pulled to take temperatures or subclasses also? Again, we want to serve our populations. We just want to have more of the full picture before we start, which I know we all do. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Great questions. Yeah, they were. Can we get some responses to those as well when we get
What school are you at? Yeah, I'm sure Ms. McFarland will have answers to all of your questions. But those are all things that they've been considering. So the school principals will have, all the answers to what the expectations are about, teachers in digital or brick and mortar and in the ask basically. So she should be able to answer all your questions.
Madam Chair?
Ms. Bowen?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Superintendent, I think I heard what you said, but perhaps I didn't. I think there was a mention of wearing scrubs as a daily outfit, and that kind of caught my interest because I know that often in the health professions, when the nurses leave their areas and come home, they kind of undress at the laundry room and throw everything they've got into the laundry at that time. And so as we're talking about safety and other issues to consider, dress that can be quickly laundered, I certainly would hope that it is something that we can see as a health benefit or the protection of all of our teachers and that particular dress, because to go into the house where you've been out all day, and most of us know when you've been out all day and you come home and you've got parents or folk in your home that you want to make sure that you are protected, that we can consider that. So if that is a discussion that should or could be handled district-wide, then certainly I think it ought to happen. If not, if not.
Are you suggesting that scrubs would be an appropriate attire for a school teacher to wear?
I'm suggesting that a scrubs type outfit or something that could be worn and washed daily, every other day, could be considered.
Can I jump? Let me jump in real quick, and I'll go ahead and get one of her questions out of the way. Yes, we are going to allow our teachers to wear scrubs. I've heard it again and again and again. Okay. They can wash them in hot water. They can, they will be very appropriate. I feel confident. So yes, as far as the district's concerned, teachers will be allowed to wear scrubs.
Good. First time I'm here tonight. Great idea. And the second thing related to the continued outfit, and we're talking about making policies and procedures better. do you think we need to place into effect tonight, or did we discuss placing the type of mask for protection into a policy? We talked about masks, but we didn't really come up with it being a policy with a certain type that is more protective rendering than others. And so,
Ms. Bowen,
as we're thinking about it, I just offer that for further thought and consideration for the safety of us all. Okay.
and I do think our mask policy is in the adoption process.
Okay.
We adopted it for advertisement last week, I think.
We don't want to.
Sorry, I know all of our days are running together. And I also just would respectfully remind us that we're still in the public hearing, public comment section.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
That's all right.
Okay,
She apologizes. Ms. McKinney-Williams.
Madam Chair, the next speaker, Scott Mazer. Please come give us your name, address. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Scott Mazer, 3319 Dartmoor Drive, Tallahassee, Florida, President Leon Classroom Teachers Association. I'm not here as a naysayer, but just a provider of information, and to ask a couple of questions as well. Superintendent, you said that the principal at Roberts would be able to answer that question, but I think what we're asking for is a community continuity across the district when it comes to mask exemptions, what people will be told and how that will work. As far as a checklist, this checklist that we filled out tonight was not here earlier this week when we came to bargain, but it's here now. So consistency once again on how we come into buildings and what that looks like at all school sites is what people are asking for as well. Example, certain staff that are here today have bandanas on, but I heard bandana's not going to work. If there was also not properly worn at the front of the office within 6 feet of another individual. So if we know that this is going to be the case when it comes to the mask issue of holding 6 feet and the sneezing and the coughing that was kind of talked about already as well, we're asking to make sure that there's a very explicit mask rule that students wear a mask except for when they're having their mask breaks. I mean, that's just pretty much what we're saying, because we know certain classrooms can't have 3 feet. Or will only have 3 feet, and half the class will have to leave for lunch while the other half stays in there. There's a lot of issues that are going on in terms of the cleanliness, in terms of who's doing that. I think we've been told there's one person that's been added to the staff for that. So the 6 feet force field sounds like a real good idea. The wearing is caring, so if we can just make sure that we abide by those district-wide, that would be very helpful. A number of the ideas that were shared about the ionization, we appreciate the fact that when we brought them up in bargaining and through the work groups, that those are being implemented, but we still have some pre-K ESE classrooms and EBD classrooms that do not have that in their place. I know we're working on Gretchen Everhart right now, but we have different schools that have those kind of places where there's going to be mask exemptions. And so if we can't have the ventilation systems to the level that they need to be at, then we know that there's going to be contamination. There's possibility of it. So we're trying to make sure that we have a very safe environment. At the same time, in terms of large areas, we know that there are certain faculties that are looking to have large faculty meetings, even though they're going to social distance, but there's going to be, masks off in an area for longer than, up to almost 2 hours at certain times. So before we go into that, based off of what you said, Superintendent, about making sure that we have a staff in place to start day one, can we just make a commitment for the first 2 weeks to do virtual meetings with our staffs? Just across the board. Continuity, make it virtual. That way, we are there day one when the students show up. I do want to talk about staffing real quick because I see my yellow light going up. We're down over 323 positions instructional staff from what was pulled from Skyward last year. So whatever the resignations are and all the other things that are going on.
Time.
I can't
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Say that again. Down 323 what?
Instructional staff.
From this time last year?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, and our last speaker is Max Epstein. Please come to the podium. Give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Max Epstein, 1001 San Luis Court. I'm here first and foremost to honor the family, the Bird family, and Miss Bradwell, 3 Black lives that have already been taken from us before school even started. And I don't know, maybe I missed it today because I came in late, but I haven't really seen an honoring of these people that have
You did miss it.
Okay, thank you. I really wanted to talk about the safety of these classrooms. This room that we're in right now is a very dangerous room. Like you said, Mr. Hanna, there are almost 20 people in here. According to the Georgia State University, there is approximately a 40% chance someone in Leon County will have COVID in a gathering of 10 people. It's almost 85% for 25 people. So that means all of our classrooms basically are going to have between a 40 and 85% chance of someone being in that room that is positive. We also know that this virus is airborne. We've known this for a long time. There is no ventilation here. This is a perfect breeding ground for COVID. And when you're saying we're going to have 3 feet in between people, what does that mean? That's not even close to CDC guidelines. And to say, oh, well, we're going to be able to take our masks off and have a mask break. So then what? Everyone's going to talk at each other and the virus is going to get airborne. There really is no way to safely return to schools at the moment. The Tallahassee, Leon County metropolitan area, which includes the 4 or 5 counties around us, is the number 4 hotspot in the nation for fastest growing cases. And I have to take issue with your letter, Mr. Hanna, when you sent it out. You talked about speaking with medical experts and saying, well, we've had 100 and something hospitalizations. At the time you sent that letter, there were 100 people in the hospital. At that time, TMH has had over 300 hospitalizations. It's probably in the 600 to 700 range. We're up to 26 deaths. We just had several more. And to say that we are working behind the scenes to make this fail, that's ridiculous. We want to make this succeed, but we do not want to send our kids and our teachers, people who are very susceptible to this, back into a room just like this. We shouldn't be sitting in this room. If we had ventilation, everything were great. HEPA filters, okay, maybe. We're setting ourselves up for failure. And exactly what happened in Georgia, everywhere else is going to happen. Do you think you can actually contact trace thousands of people per day that may have been in contact? I've heard 15 minutes.
Time.
You're supposed to be 15 minutes.
Thank you for your comment.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Epstein.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes our public persons to be heard.
Thank you all for being here. All right, that takes us to the regular business section of the meeting, and we start with item 7 and the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
I move consent.
All right, moved by Ms. Striplin, second by Mr. Jones. Without objection, show the consent agenda adopted. That takes us to item 18, construction consent. Is there a motion?
Move consent.
Moved by Mr. Jones, second by Ms. Bowen.
Second.
Without objection, show it unanimously approved. That takes us to item 19 for consideration. Mr. Albritton.
Good evening, Board, Chair, Superintendent. Item 1901 is a project priority list item, and to give you a little information, this project priority list is mostly a finance issue. Portion of the capital outlay debt service CONDS funds can only be spent on projects that are on this list. So to be able to spend the capital outlay debt service funds, we have to have a project priority list. So the item is 1901. The superintendent recommends approval of the updated project priority list, PPL, to be submitted to the Florida Department of Education, Office of Educational Facilities.
Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Move the motion.
Moved by Ms. Striplin, second by Ms. Wood. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, it's unanimously approved. Takes us to item, I don't see anything under item 20 for information items, reports to be heard, none to date. Superintendent's comments. Mr. Superintendent, did you have more to add?
No, ma'am. We're very excited. Our teachers will be back on Monday, and our school children back on The 31st, 2 weeks after that.
And that takes us to item 23, continuing concerns from board members. Ms. Wood, did you have additional questions? I know we covered many of them earlier.
The one that sticks out, well, two are, three actually. Sorry. Large group meetings, superintendent, that was brought up in one of the last comments. Are we going to allow large group meetings?
Like staff meetings?
Yeah, staff meetings, back to school breakfast, that sort of thing.
Right. So I've gotten myself in trouble before. I'll get an answer back to you. I don't want to say, I know some principals, I believe, have decided to spread people out in the auditorium or in the cafeteria to give them a breakfast. I mean, as you know, as a former principal, it's a longstanding tradition to have a welcome back breakfast to kind of put eyeballs on each other. If we can't do it in a safe environment, then, obviously we won't do it. But I'll have a discussion with my team and my staff and the folks at the Department of Health and get back to you and answer on that tomorrow.
We know that adults are the chief spreaders of this virus, and I just think everything we can do to have adults not interacting with each other, the better, even though, of course, I would say just the opposite as a principal wanting, in a non-COVID environment, you want everybody to be together and be happy, and socializing makes a good school. But we're in a really unusual situation right now. And I wouldn't want any teacher to feel like they're going to be, chastised for some reason if they didn't come to that breakfast because it happened to contain a back to school staff meeting, and there they are in an environment where they don't feel comfortable, but they don't feel comfortable saying they don't want to go. So I would
agree.
Strongly advise that we do that and put people in that position, even though it's unfortunate, because I know that's part of the fun of being a faculty and being together. I was a little bit concerned about Mr. Mazur's comment that we're down 323 teachers. I'd like to get some more information on that. Maybe not right this second, but I know some faculty positions were cut.
Yeah.
Just anticipating that, we were going to have a downturn. But I'd like a little more information on that, particularly as it relates to what are our class size numbers. I've heard a lot of good numbers, low numbers, but I've also heard some high numbers. So in that, usually the only way you can remedy that is with a little bit of extra staffing. So could you get back with us on just now that schedules are starting to get finalized and classes are starting to get balanced, just what are we looking at, high to low and class sizes? So that's another just ask for next week. So class size, large group meetings, and the number of teachers that are different from this time last year in terms of numbers. Okay?
Got it.
Yes.
All right, very good.
Thank
Ms.
I have a
Bowen?
quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a quick question. And actually, I thought about it when we were listening to our task forces, but I didn't task force reports. I didn't get a chance to ask it then. Do we have any idea? And we've had so much wonderful help in getting us where we are today with these precious resources in our community. Does anyone have any idea of the number of our constituents here in Leon County who may have written to the governor or written to Mr. Conklin's office and asking these questions and relaying their concerns about opening of schools? It would just be interesting to note. We get the brunt of what we're getting, but I'm just wondering if they have been as directed to those offices with regards to placing their concerns in those offices as they have been ours. And I certainly know and hope that they will continue to come to us. But I'd just like to know if anyone has that information shared. If not, sooner or later, I guess we can find out. I didn't know where to look for it. That's all. Thank you.
I know, Madam Sister, Mrs. Bowen, I know that there have been some parent-led responses where they have staged protests at the governor's mansion. A variety of parent groups, mom groups have done that. I know that there's also been letter writing campaigns that have also been spurred by statewide teachers
Yep.
union as well. I don't know I don't know if we can capture it, but I do know that people have been
Good.
there has been protest, and if you also have noticed, not that it's funny, but when the governor makes public appearances, there is a vocal contingent that expresses its displeasure with some of his decisions relative to
Yes.
the reopening of schools.
Yes,
Not
I
that I
did
think
notice that.
Not that I think it's funny. I mean, I'm
No,
just
but-
saying there are people who are letting
Yeah.
him know their great displeasure at what has
Yeah.
been his direction relative to the reopening of schools.
All right.
Not that I think it's funny, but
No.
they have let them know their displeasure about
That's
his
good.
direction on the
Great.
reopening of schools.
All right, are there any further
Register.
concerns?
Yes, there is a further concern, Madam Chair.
Mr. Jones?
Thank you for that chance, Ms. Bowen. I appreciate that. There's a point of particular interest for me, and that is what has been our continuing conversation regarding what we know to be cyclical poverty in the 32304 zip code. And I do believe that the response to the end of cyclical poverty in 32304 is found in our Leon County schools. And so what I would like for us to do most specifically in what has already been the concerted effort by our wonderful adult education asset, and that is a lively vocational technical college. And what I'd like to do with the permission of the superintendent and my colleagues is to convene a task force where we would identify all of our schools that are in 32304, along with lively vocational technical college, as well as other partners like Career Source, our office, the Office of Economic Vitality, where we can identify new targeted industries where we see a growth and increase and new working class jobs that are being created, and make a sustained effort to provide the type of access and direction for our young people that will lend them towards long-term careers that can help us to remedy what we know as cyclical poverty. We have the response found right here in our district, and what I'd like for us to do when we convene this task force, that we would then be able to collect the type of data over the next 5 years, 6 years, 4 years, as young people are identified for these types of career technical tracks, that we could then be able to see what we know is going to be the long-term and sustainable impact that we know that our lively vocational technical college can provide to stem the tide of cyclical poverty. And I'd like for us to convene that task force sometime after the reopening of schools, identify those partners, and then we identify those schools where we could do where we could make certain that we have the types of tentacles and purposeful activity that will lead to long-term impacts and returns on that type of investment and that type of interest and that type of study and that type of purposeful direction. And that's my new concern. And with the permission of the superintendent and my colleagues, I'd like to be permitted to convene that task force.
Mr. Jones, the language that we use is always determines how we can proceed. So whether it's called a task force, if it's a task force, I know it has to have a board vote.
Or committee. Or
Right. So
however.
maybe work with the superintendent about exactly what the scope of authority for this group would be and whether it needs to come back and for a formal vote on an agenda.
If you don't mind also, if you can capture that was a lot. If you could capture that in writing, maybe the bullets for me, and then we can, work on looking at some type of model.
Yes, sir.
Great.
Madam
Thank
Chair?
you, Mr. Jones. Ms. Wood.
Just one last thing. We know that we're always concerned about our Title I schools, and in particular, there's a lot of support that is going to be needed, especially for our students who are choosing the digital academy. And I would ask that we reconvene our Title I Advisory Council, right away, along with some community experts, and get some advice on what are some of the ways we can provide some extra support in this very particular time.
Very good.
So noted.
So noted. He's taking it under advisement on his notepad. Ms. Striplin.
All right, Madam Chair. I have a concern, so I'm gonna have to shift everybody just a minute. Think of before COVID when we talked about things that were actually on our agenda. So this is completely not COVID related, which is really difficult in this time because COVID, everything around what we're doing takes precedence. But I would remind us we are, we are obligated to uphold the policies of the Leon County School Board. So an item I had pulled tonight was a contract between Lively and a digital marketing, IT support, website hosting, design company that apparently was on our agenda a couple of weeks ago, and forgive me not digging in closer at that time. But what we approved was a continuing services contract for over $50,000, which, according to 6320, should be put out to bid. So then it came back to us again this week, and it jumped to over 70,000. So I kind of radar went off a little bit, and I thought, let me pull this and see if I can get some more information. So I just wanted to. Our policies are long and lengthy, so I did send you guys the policy today just so you could have it in front of you when we talked about it. But under 6320, there's lots of language about the need to advertise competitive solicitations as provided by statute, State Board of Education, for material supplies and services whose total cost is more than $50,000. And this is nothing new for us. I know this predates Daryl and Roseanne Joy. You'll remember this. When I first joined the board, we had, I didn't even know what audit findings were back then, but apparently we had 28 of them, 28. So I went back and looked at some language, and it referenced needing tighter controls over continuing service contracts, that we had gotten a little lax. And then as you jump forward a few years, it was in there again, around 2016. So this is something that I think strikes a chord with me, just because this was part of some issues that when I first got here. And then even moving up to current, I remember we had it with our board attorney. We had to, it was time that we put out that contract to bid. These are people that do great work for us, and has nothing to do with their ability or their continuing commitment to Leon County Schools. But we are bound by policy to make sure that we are spending these taxpayer dollars correctly. So we looked at the board attorney, we've looked at insurance services. This was another thing that hadn't been put out to bid in a while and was above that threshold. So this is something that I asked to pull off the agenda and ask for us to take a little closer look at it. I believe that this is a contract that needs to be evaluated and put out to bid, and possibly, this agency does a wonderful job, and their fees could be reduced. I will also throw in there that this company that has been doing this for Lively, I believe 2 years ago, it was about the cost of $25,000. So it's the fee for these services has now doubled it's grown exponentially. So, and I'm sure they provide, like I said, I think with that growth comes additional attendance and additional interest in Lively, and we need that. We need to market it. But if it's grown to this kind of, this kind of dollar figure, we need to have this looked at again, and we need to make sure that as a board we're doing our due diligence by spending our taxpayer dollars wisely. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there to you guys and get your thoughts on it. It would be my intention to make a motion that we rescind our approval from 2 weeks ago on this contract until we can get further guidance. I know that there was an addendum on the contract, so if you look down further in the policy, there is some language of exemptions to the competitive bidding process, which again, I think makes me twitch a little bit just because of what we went through, so many years ago. But one of the exemptions that was noted in this contract, I think from our people, was that it would fall under advertising, which would be a possible exemption. However, the citations in this policy include things like newspaper, radio, television, banners, brochures, pamphlets, clearly not the services that are outlined in this contract. This is more of a web design, website hosting. It's more of what I would call a professional services contract for IT services and web hosting. So would like to get your thoughts on how we proceed. I definitely don't want it to inhibit services that Lively is providing or their website in itself. So if there's something that we need to look at as far as a short period of time that they can continue until this bid process can be done correctly, that I think that would be, that would be something that I'd be willing to, to entertain, but love to get your feedback on that.
Mr. Superintendent.
Mr. Jones, let me make sure if
Well,
we're in the
I
right
have
posture.
a question regarding what she said, so I'd like to ask the superintendent a question regarding this item that was put on the agenda and that we've already approved. Did it not meet the threshold? If it was agendaed for us to review, wasn't it not internally vetted that it would qualify to come to us for a decision that we've subsequently already made?
First, let me say, and to Ms. Striplin's point, yes, years ago there were a number of findings, but in the Auditor General's last financial audit of Leon County School System, there were 0 findings. And I understand and appreciate Ms. Striplin's position. We have this, all of us are tasked to be fiscally responsible with taxpayer dollars. This goes through a vetting process with our purchasing director, Jeanne Schroeder. Jeanne can probably give a little more insight into what her logic was and reasoning when we put this on as an item. I think there's a lot more to it than just overseeing the school's website. We know we are in direct competition with our neighbor next door who spends hundreds of thousands of dollars on marketing their institution and their programs. I'm sure there's an answer. However, y'all want me to help you get to that answer. If we want to ask Jeanne to say a few words now, I'm at your pleasure. But I am very proud of the fact that not only that, but all of our independent audits, there's been less than 5 on any audit we've had in the last 4 years. So we don't want to get back on that trail. And if Ms. Striplin thinks that we may have passed something in error, we want to revisit it, I'll be glad to look at it. But I'm at your pleasure.
Mr. Jones.
Mr. Superintendent.
Mr. Jones.
Yes. As described, yes.
I was saying, go right ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, as described, if it's a contract for web design, we do realize that we're in the 21st century and web pages are used for the purposes of marketing the parent site or the site for which the website is designed. And I just feel that if we've already made that decision, it was already vetted by the persons who prepared the agenda item, then subsequently, I don't see any reason why we would then have a motion to reconsider when we've already voted on it in mass.
In fairness, if I may, Madam Chair, Jeanne Schroeder's been on the line now for 2.5 hours. I think it's only fair to let Jeanne weigh in on this.
Ms. Kale, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Ms. Kale?
And now my backup's gone. So if Ms. Kale may not have been on the line she was just a minute ago. Ms. Banks, are you out there? I know you've had conversations with Ms. McKinney-Williams on this issue as well. I don't want to put our council on the spot.
Okay, no, that's fine, Mr. Superintendent. My understanding is that Ms. Kale and Ms. Banks were on the line. It may be that they had to drop off. My understanding from communicating with purchasing.
We ended the meeting.
Ms. Bowen? My understanding.
I'm listening.
Okay, my understanding from communicating with the purchasing director, was that the contract is a web-based contract, but it's for web-based advertising services. When you look at this board policy, we certainly know that that it establishes a requirement for competitive bidding generally once you reach a certain monetary threshold. There are exemptions within this policy which track exemptions that are in state board rule. One of the exemptions, as has been already discussed, is an exemption for media advertising. That section says competitive bidding is waived for purchases which are not otherwise appropriate for normal competitive purchasing, including but not limited to, and then it contains a laundry list. The next to the last item is media advertising, and there's a parenthetical. That parenthetical says newspaper, radio, television, banners, brochures, pamphlets. So this web-based platform that this company establishes doesn't meet anything within the parenthetical, but the laundry list is is not exclusive. It's not exhaustive. These are representative examples, but not everything has to be captured exactly within here, at least as the policy is drafted. In addition to that exemption, there is another exemption for professional services. And it says the purchase of professional services, which includes without limitation, so it includes with, but it is not limited to, artistic services, academic program reviews, lectures, auditing services, legal services, health services. This type of web-based work requires a level of expertise and skill, you would assume, that rises to the level of professional, not entry level. So that is another exemption that this could fall under. So my understanding is that purchasing utilized one of these two exemptions to bring the item to the board. So it is within board policy. That being said, the district could choose to use competitive procurement. It doesn't have to in these instances, and district staff elected not to in this instance. So that is where we are. I don't see that there is a legal impediment to it coming before you all. What you have, though, is a concern from one of the members of the board about the item and whether it should be. And so that's the question that you all are dealing with at this
And
point.
if I may add, Director Bell is fully aware of Ms. Triplin's concern and is committed when she goes out for procurement again at the end of this contract to do a competitive selection. We're across the river with this company right now, but she is committed to do a competitive procurement moving forward. But again, it's your pleasure.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Wood?
just Ms. Strickland asked for our input. I'm not interested in going back and revisiting a vote we've already made. I'm guessing that when that laundry list was made, it may not have even been web services at the time, in that writing, but
It's the 21st century, my God.
any kind of marketing and advertising, which, as you said, we're in great competition next door. We have a company who's doing a great job. The principal, the person who is, contracting with them, has been working, I'm assuming, for the last few years developing that website. And it's not just so easy to change horses on something like that when you really developed a plan and a program that you might want to change every day a little bit. So, as long as it fits within our policy, I think that's the discretion of the leader of that school.
Well, and in hindsight, we could have done, and I think moving forward, when you do the next procurement, you can do I believe up to 3 years, a 3-year procurement, because to your point, you can't just change every single year. So the next time out, she would do a, procurement process, have companies interview, submit bids, and then contract with them for a 3-year period.
I would say too, and I do appreciate the feedback, and and this is not something that I will put my stamp of no on it. So when an audit finding does come back and we get dinged for this, I will be proud to say that I did my due diligence. But that said, I am one of 5, and we move as a group. And you can roll your eyes all you want, Mr. Jones. It doesn't bother me one bit. I'll say exactly what I want to say. But I will say too. There's a secondary factor that they receive. There's federal funding involved at Lively, and I think that raises the procurement level even just a little bit more than what we're normally under, which is pretty intense. But speaking from the side of understanding the federal level of, they want to make sure that federal funds are spent to the very best of our ability, even more so than the state, that we are choosing wisely when we contract services. So that said, I think we're putting ourselves at risk by, putting our stamp of approval on this. But again, so this will come back to us on the 18th. And again, it'll be another $6,000 or $7,000 increase from what we already approved. So, if you guys would like to find out why the increase, I think that would be I think that would be wise. What increased from 2 weeks ago, was several $1,000s. But I am glad to hear that there is an agreement for next year for this to go through a competitive selection.
Yeah,
process.
and we can bring her in and ask, well, why did it increase? I mean, they provide a multitude of services. And look, if the auditor dings us on this, we'll make a legal defense, just like she so eloquently stated, our counsel, and that'll be our defense, and that'll be our point. But look, I'm with you. So when we came on board, whether it was with securing services from attorneys at all levels, we have gone through this over the last several years, ensuring that we are being financially responsible with taxpayer dollars, and we want to continue to do that. So I appreciate Ms. Strickland raising the concern. I think it's been heard. And moving forward, yes, there will absolutely be a procurement in the next several years for Lively Technical College.
And when it does come back to Ms. Strickland's point, and I may be confusing this because goodness knows we've had a little bit on our plate lately, but it seems like, is this a grant? And did they have this piece in their grant proposal that was already approved by the federal government, and maybe those things could be answered?
I think those questions can be answered. I'm not sure that it's coming from grant funding, but that's a question that can certainly
Right,
be
so when
asked.
it comes back, if they could be prepared to answer those questions, but not tonight, because we're.
Not tonight. I would also ask as a follow-up, that agency goes under several different names, so if we could make sure that all names under that agency are included under that umbrella, so we can see entirety, what the dollar figure that we're paying to that overall entity.
You mean the corporation, the corporate vendor?
Yes.
Okay.
That.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may
Yes, Ms.
I
Bell.
ask Ms. Opal Williams to pull for me tomorrow so that I can get in paper form exactly what it is that we are looking at tonight, so that the discussion can be very clear. My reading of what Alva is mentioning is clear, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, let me be very clear.
Mr.
Right?
Jones.
So I don't want anybody to make any false assumptions, right? I don't appreciate the implication that there's some misfeasance on our part because we don't agree with the pulling of the item. That's my concern. We asked for a determination from legal counsel and from the persons who provided the item to the board. That was provided to us. So for us not to agree with its pulling and to somehow imply that we could still find ourselves in some precarious situation under an audit exemption because we did not agree when we've already received counsel that told us that we were within our rights, I think is reckless and unfair. And that's why I rolled my eyes, because I trust our legal counsel.
And let's just be clear for a second too. Ms. Strickland had originally intended to proffer a motion that would have reconsidered the vote that we took the other night. What she pulled tonight is an item that is a different item that will come back next week, presumably.
Right.
Okay.
I think it was back
So
on
just-
18th.
So
That's my understanding.
okay, so
Yeah.
so to your point, Mr. Jones, what you're trying to say is that for the item that she originally thought maybe she would make a motion, which she did not offer tonight, to reconsider that vote, that was not offered, it was not seconded, that was a discussion point.
Yep.
And she's pulled an item that'll be back on the agenda next week, which is a standalone separate item. Well, they're
It'll be back
related.
next- it'll be
Okay.
back next week,
Anyway,
whatever it is.
all right.
I move that we rise. I think we're getting a little tired. Everyone's been under a lot of stress. I think we
There's
should.
no stress. I mean, it's enough of this.
All right. Ms. Wood moves we rise. The meeting is adjourned.
Don't drag us.